Let's start off with telling us about the funding issues that you've had for quite a long time at the UOW Football Club.
Rightio. I suppose primarily it relates to the student union funding. I think it was circa 2006 that it became voluntary. So prior to that, we received funding from the university via these union payments, which greatly helped to fund the club. We were still, in the lower realms of the financial status of clubs in the Illawarra as far as our financial ability to run and attract players, but we were certainly able to provide a decent level of football to students at a low or negligible cost. But since the union payments stopped and that all became voluntary, obviously that all dried up and we stopped getting any assistance from the university financially at all. So we're in a situation where we have to hire our grounds from the university like any other student or any other person in the Illawarra. They give us a student rate, but we're still paying, $30-something or $40 or whatever it is an hour to hire a ground. We have to approach, local businesses and local licensed premises and people that are involved in alcohol sales to try and fund our club and give us sponsorship to try and keep it running. And it's a culture of, a university student wanting to play sport and really having to be involved in this, alcohol industry just to allow the club to survive.
Does being associated with the uni hurt your ability to get outside sponsorships?
Yeah, that's probably the first thing that comes up every time we want to ask for sponsorship. So we approach local businesses and, the standard conversation with Joe's Hairdresser would be, hey, we've got this great local football club. We're supporting university students to play football. Can you help us out and sponsor us? And the initial reaction is, well, why am I going to give you money from my little hairdresser when it's a university team? UOW is such a rich university and can spend so much money as publicised in the media on all these different projects and buildings and car parks. And yet, why would I need to give your club money when the university should be funding it? And that's that constant conversation of, actually, we don't get anything from the university and we rely on local businesses to support our club.
So you mentioned the issue of you not getting funding stemming from the union payment fees. Now they've got student amenity fees. You're still not seeing any money from the uni when some universities, such as Sydney University and Macquarie, are putting in upwards of millions of dollars a year.
Yeah, we haven't. I realise that's come in the last, couple of years. So it's come back into the fold. And we have, pardon me, we've had conversations with UOW in conjunction with the University Cricket Club, rugby and hockey clubs, and even had a bit of a combined focus because they're all having very similar funding issues, and certainly had made submissions to the SAF funding in relation to our clubs and didn't receive a dollar. So currently, the fact that these payments have started up again hasn't helped us at all.
So how much funding would you need to solve most of your qualms?
Well, we asked when we were talking about this student funding that had come back in, we asked for basically $10,000 per club per year, and that was purely to try and cover ground hire costs. It was an average cost per club of around about $10,000 to hire the facilities from the university, and all we were asking for is even just to cover that. And if that wasn't all our costs, and it certainly wouldn't be enough to make us, competitive with the strongest clubs in our league that have got significantly higher financial capacity. Like we're talking about clubs that have got playing budgets of, $150,000 just to attract players to go to their club and play. Players come down from Sydney to play in our local leagues because they're good players, and because they get attracted down here by the sorts of financial incentives that are being offered, and we're realistic to know we're not going to compete with that, certainly not in the short term. But even as a minimum, to try and cover our grant hire costs would be a significant benefit to reduce the cost for the students to try and play, and hopefully then at least attract some better quality players that that don't have to pay us to come and play.
So do you have to pay the uni to use their grounds,
Yes.
even though you're the university team?
Yes.
How much does that cost you to use their ground?
Well, I think the general amount or an average amount is about $10,000 a season.
So do you have University of Wollongong students playing for other local teams?
Certainly. So that's probably one of the biggest problems at the moment, is that because our club is in such a dire financial situation, we have to charge all our players, hundreds of dollars to come and play. Plus they have to buy their equipment. Plus they have to buy, a mandatory club polo shirt. There's club jackets. There's those sorts of things they have to buy. So for a student that's, potentially say come from the country, which is quite common, come to Wollongong, first year student, and suddenly they've got to outlay hundreds and hundreds of dollars to come and play football. If they're a really good player, we want them to play for us. The alternative is, and if they find out about it, they go up the road and they play for a Port Kembla or a Bulli or a Tarrawanna or, these clubs that have got significantly high playing budgets, and they get paid to play for them. They don't have to pay Rego. They don't have to do these things. And we lose players. We lose quality players to these other clubs. If we were to put together a team of, students that were the best students available that played, that were at university right now, that team would be probably the best in the league. But all those different students, they don't play for us. They go and play for these other teams because they want to get paid, and I can understand that. And certainly, if I was in the same situation, that's what I'd do, and that's what we want to change.
But some of the things you would use the funding for?
Well, predominantly the grant hire cost is our biggest hurdle at the moment, and we have to charge these fees to our players to try and not make a profit, just to make it even. Where we're not able to employ a coach or a quality coach that's got significant levels of experience. And we've got our coach this year who is a good coach, but he's doing it voluntarily. And he's also the secretary of the club. We've got myself, I'm the president of the club, and I'm also a player. And I've been one of the first grade players for a while, being a graduate of URW. We're in a situation since 2006 where, because we've lost this funding, a lot of the historical players that we had that were still involved have all sort of left and gone to do other things or just dropped off the radar. And so now we're in a situation where, particularly with our female team as an example, they've moved on and gone to do other things or just stopped playing because they were sick of these funding issues. So having some increased funding to at least cover costs for the students would help to retain these people for longer and help strengthen the committee, therefore help strengthen the ability of us to function as a club. Where we can't pay coaches. We're struggling to buy balls this year, and one of the other players who has his own business provided some balls and bought them. He just rocked up and bought them because he knew that we were struggling financially. So we've trimmed as much fat as we can this year, in the last few years particularly, and we're not paying our coaches anymore. Every other club in the Illawarra, I don't know of any other club that doesn't pay a coach, particularly a first grade coach. And when we advertised for coaches earlier in the year, and we had a couple of people that came and showed their credentials, and when I told them that there was a non-paid position at the moment, we never hear from them again. It's difficult to be able to operate and be competitive, and that we're relying on a lot of goodwill from the people that just really want to play for their university. But at the moment this year, we didn't have a women's team. Our Hippos team, our women's side, were certainly our most successful side over the last probably 15 years. They were a side that had a winning streak of about 70 odd games, and it's, from what we're led to believe, actually a world record. And we're trying to sort out the records from the Football South Coast, the local association, to send that into Guinness and actually say, hey, listen, have a look at this, because it looks like it's actually bigger than any other team in the world. And that team won, our Hippos team won the FFA Amateur Team of the Year, which is the highest amateur award for a football team in Australia. And they went to an awards dinner in Sydney with the Socceroos, with Harry Kuehl, Mark Schwarzer, and they won that. And so it's the University of Wollongong Football Club Hippos team winning this award in front of the entire footballing nation of Australia. And they come from Wollongong. They come from the University of Wollongong. And that team this year does not exist because those players have left. They were sick of not getting any support and they've gone to other clubs. And there was a lack of committee, management, coaching staff to run that team because they were just sick of not getting the support.
So how much funding do you receive from the uni at the moment?
Nothing.
So what does the soccer clubs, you and previously the women's team, bring to the uni?
We were originally set up as a club to provide a footballing service to the students. That was the whole purpose of the club. It was to allow students to play in the local competition and be competitive. No one wants to go out there. It's not a social club. It may have started out that way in the first year, but it was started out to be a competitive club and to win games and to provide a high level of football to students without them having to go and play for other local teams. And that's continued on. Pardon me. We are certainly the highest level of football that it's offered, that's connected with the university, and primarily the university is selling the student experience in Wollongong as come to URW and play sport. There's brochures that they distribute, I believe, to international students and certainly within Australia, that has double page spreads with photos of our previous Hippos player, female player, wearing our strip with our logo and our Builders Club sponsor, playing on Oval 1 that we're not allowed to play on, and kicking a football, which has probably never happened there. Advertising, come to URW and play sport. And the flip side of that is that they don't actually support these sports. So they're selling this experience to the students, but they don't give any financial support whatsoever to actually keep these clubs afloat.